Hello, beautiful, gorgeous person on the other side of this podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us today for another badass episode of High Vibin' It. Welcome to the show. We are here to help empower you, inspire you, and help you live your most high vibe life. And today, Miss Lindsay and I have a very special guest, Shirin Eskandani. Wait, no, Eskandi. Wait,
Eskandani, you got it.
Yes,
you got it.
Eskandani. Why did I think I was wrong? Anyway, I do this every week. I'm so sorry. Shirin is here to join us. She's a coach, guide, facilitator, and life alchemist. And we're about alchemy on this show. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with my words today? We are all about alchemy
Monday.
on this show. So we're really excited to have her. Shirin, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am just as excited to be here. Thank you.
Yay. Yeah. It's nice to have a fellow curly girl here on the show. I'm just like admiring everyone's hair today. Lindsay's got her hair up in a cute little bun. We got some curls going on with Shirin. I got some loose curls, some second day curls happening. If you guys are watching on the Patreon, you can see what we look like instead of just hearing our voices in your little earbuds. But Shirin, can you tell the people like a little bit about what you do and maybe how you got started in this work? And then I have some juicy questions to dive into.
Yeah. So I call the work that I do life alchemy because I believe like all of us can kind of create gold out of whatever life has given us in any moment, no matter what our past is like, no matter what our present is like. It's about really creating the gold. And I do that through kind of mindset, mindfulness, and manifestation. Those are the tools that I use to create gold myself and with my clients. But the way that I found myself here, is kind of a funny story. Like many of us, I did not think I would be doing this work. So I used to be an opera singer for like 10 years.
Oh, I have goosebumps just thinking about that.
Yeah. So when I was like a young girl, I come from a super musical family and I just loved to sing, and singing was like the one thing that brought me so much joy. And it just, when I was on stage, I felt most myself. And so I decided to pursue singing. And when I was growing up where I lived, I was like very much a big fish in a little pond.
Mhm.
And because of that, I never had to do any of the inner work because I just, I'm an immigrant child. I grew up in a predominantly white community. And so I think anyone who's listening can understand when you feel like you're left out, you create these coping mechanisms to feel like you're included, like you're like everyone else. And so for me, those coping mechanisms that I found were people pleasing and perfectionism and overachieving. And so, that served me, quote unquote, really well. Especially when I was an undergrad and I was singing and I was just like really great at what I did. And I was like, yes, I'm amazing. I'm worthy. And then I got to New York to do my master's, and that's where I live now. And I realized that like everyone was amazing. Everyone was hardworking. And that sense of identity just crumbled because I'd never had a sense of identity outside of being perfect, being a perfect singer, and being the best singer.
And being like unique among the people that you were around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. So like what makes me unique, what makes me special, all of that like just went away. And of course, so you try to cling on to those same tools that you have, right? So like I worked even harder, I pleased even more, I was trying to be even more perfect in a profession that like there is no such thing as perfect. Like it's just not possible in the arts, right? And so this got me really far. However, I was completely burnt out. I started to really resent and hate singing, which was like the thing that once used to bring me joy. But from the outside, I had this like really perfect, quote unquote, successful career in life. Like I was one of a very few of the students who graduated from my school who was singing full time pretty much right after I graduated. I was making my income that way, and I was singing at some of the best opera houses in the world. And my big wake up call was in 2016, 17. I got a call from my agent, like the call I'd been waiting for my entire life. And he was like, Shirin, the Metropolitan Opera wants you to sing in Carmen. And so the Metropolitan Opera is like literally like the Olympics of singing. Like it's like where you want to be. And I had always imagined this moment as a young girl, like talk about manifestation. But if we want to talk about this, we can. I feel like you can manifest things by willing them to happen, or you can manifest them by allowing them to happen.
Yeah.
I was like manifesting things through sheer will. And so I manifested this thing. However, I'd always imagined feeling so much joy and so much like love and like feeling like I am enough, I am good. Like I always thought I'd get this job, and finally were proved to me that I was good, that I was worthy, that I was enough. And I got the contract and I looked at it and I realized I felt none of those feelings. If anything, I felt like worse. I felt like, oh my gosh, you don't deserve this. You're not enough. And that's when this like light bulb went off for me, that I was like, whoa, if this can't fulfill you or make you feel fulfilled, then it's not the external things that give us all these amazing feelings. And it's not the external. Cause sometimes you get something and you're like, oh, but I probably don't feel fulfilled because if I had gotten 10K more, like it would be perfect. And then I'd feel that way. Or, oh, if my partner was like maybe 2 inches taller, then it'd be perfect. And I wouldn't feel this, but like, this was the perfect circumstance, perfect job offer. And I didn't feel that way. And so I just realized nothing outside of me was ever going to make me feel whole or worthy or enough. And so that took me on this whole journey of figuring out what my identity was and who I was internally. And I had a year and a half to prepare for my role. And so in that year and a half, I worked on my singing, but I also worked on myself for the very first time. So I started working with a coach and I got into mindfulness and mindset. And to this day, I say my greatest accomplishment in life isn't singing at the Met, but it's singing at the Met and enjoying every part of that process. I was able to be present. I was able to be grounded. I was able, even when I messed up or things were weird and awkward, I was able to just be so present. In the past, I would have taken a mistake and made it like, a 2-second mistake would have been like a 4-day extravaganza in my head, you know what I'm saying? Like it just would have been the worst. Yes. And that's what was making me so burnt out. That's what was making me so resentful of singing. It wasn't the singing, it was how I was doing it. And so I reclaimed my how. But also in that process, I realized that actually, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I realized I actually really want to do coaching. And so I slowly started to make that transition. And now I coach pretty much full time and I sing once in a while. I do concerts every so often. But yeah, that's kind of the journey to coming here to where I am today.
First of all, can we just talk about how amazing the stories are that come out of our guests? Like this has got to be like top 3 amazing life journeys. We've never had an opera singer on before. And I just think that for you to be able to, for something to be able to be like the thing for so long for you, and for you to give yourself permission through the process, of course, and I'm sure it wasn't overnight, but to give yourself permission to pivot and to change and to be like, you know what? That served its purpose in whatever way that it was. And now I get to decide going forward. One of the biggest privileges we have in life, I believe, is to change our minds. And we don't always give ourselves permission to do that, especially when we build something up so much that's supposed to be the solution, or the reason or the why or the how. So kudos to you for doing that. I love your journey. I love your story so much.
Yeah, I really personally resonate with your story because I grew up training to be a classical ballet dancer like my whole life. So same lifestyle, same upbringings. I mean, classical arts are hardcore. And like when you just attach your identity to this one thing for so long, it's honestly devastating, even if it's your choice to not do it, which for me, it kind of was and wasn't because I had injuries. So I felt like it wasn't my choice. I felt like it was taken away from me, but it's either way, it's so hard to just shift because you're so attached. And I'm glad that we've been kind of exploring this topic a little bit on the show, because with Joe Hawley, we really dove into this. We had an ex-professional football player on the show, and he helps coach men through the transition of like being this professional athlete and then having to be like a quote unquote regular person is hard. So anyone who's ever struggled with an identity shift, I think can really like feel themselves in your story. So I'm super glad that you're on here today to just, share your journey and talk to us about healing and how you were able to shift your mindset from feeling not good enough, which I think when you do disciplines like that, it's weird because you're like, oh, I'm so good. I'm the best. I'm super talented. I practice harder than everyone else. But then at the same time, your teachers are always like, you suck, get it together, stand up straighter, shine brighter. And so you're like, I'm the worst, but also I'm the best. Like, what's going on? Right? Like, that's how I always felt as a ballerina. And so I'm curious, like, how did you nurture yourself to feel like, to claim your goodness that you always had and to claim like your enoughness that you always were? How were you able to make that transition in your mind?
I mean, it's a practice, it's work, as you both know, right? It's like a constant practice. But I think when you're on your self-growth journey, they're like those formative moments are just so like important in what I discovered about myself. And it was really detaching myself from like, what I do is not like who I am. What I
Yeah.
achieve is just like, that's something else. It's like the cherry on top, whatever, but like I am whole and worthy just as I am in my imperfect self. And I think a lot of it had to do with like, you know, it was a lot of being with the thoughts that I was like running away from, being with the thoughts that had always been there. And like I remember when I was first doing a lot of mindset work, and this coach I was working with always made us do like these thought dumps, like just writing our thoughts down for like 5 minutes. And I was like, this is torture. Like this is terrible. I'm like, why would I even want to see this? And it's something I do with my clients all the time.
And that's how you
now.
know you're supposed to do it, because
Yes,
it's
exactly, right?
it makes you confront that. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. And it was just the self-awareness of the thoughts and then being able to shift those thoughts slowly and change them. I think that's something I really believe in strongly though, too, in our industry is sometimes I feel like we're asked to shift our thoughts way too quickly. Like, oh, I'm supposed to do like, I'm like for 30 plus years, I've thought I am not enough. And then like, I'm supposed to go look in a mirror and say, I am enough to myself. And I was like, wait, I don't know about this. And so really about doing it slowly at your own pace. Cause I really feel like our healing and growth and our wellness should meet us where we're at. Like it should push us, but it should also be able to meet us where we're at in our lives. Because if it doesn't, then it's not sustainable. Then we can't kind of keep it as part of a practice. And so, yeah, just finding that in my, and also in meditation, being able to be with my thoughts and become still. I never knew what stillness was. Like I'm, even to this day, like I'm still a very go, 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 do kind of person, but my meditation practice and mindset work have really helped me just like be way more grounded in who I am. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many things, but a lot of it, like I said at the top, was like, I am not what I do. I'm not what I do or what I achieve. Yeah. That was like the biggest lesson and the toughest thing to work through.
Yeah. I love that you talk about I can't remember how you said it. I'm going to paraphrase you. I'm so sorry. Meeting your self-improvement where you're at, or meeting where you want to be where you're at, or something like that. It's so important. I know Kelsey has a lot to say about this as well, because we do talk about this so much on the podcast where, we talk about now even the term toxic positivity is becoming kind of outplayed, but it doesn't stop being a thing. It doesn't stop being true. You have to talk about those things that are being taught that aren't necessarily one size fit all. And I wish more people understood that self-improvement, self-empowerment is not one size fit all. I cannot do I am statements. And so as a hypnotherapist, the first thing I teach my clients is like, there are things that will resonate with you and there are things that won't, and all of it is okay. And if there are ways to fix and tweak affirmations to fit how you yourself take in information. And I wish more people were aware and give themselves the grace that like, maybe this doesn't work for me and that's okay. Instead of, because what a lot of times what happens is people will try these things, they won't work. And then they'll just get so discouraged and be like, well, I guess affirmations suck, but that's not it. It's just, you haven't found the thing that works for you yet. And that's okay. So thank you again for bringing up such an important thing that needs to be said more often.
Yeah, we're big on authenticity and gentleness, especially when it comes to affirmation work. Like that can be hardcore if you're like lying to yourself. It's just going to create more internal like damage than good. So I'm glad that you said that. And for anyone who's listening and like, oh yeah, I'm totally vibing with this idea, we've done like 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 episodes about affirmations and how to use them in a more gentle, like how to really customize them so they feel good to you in that moment, or at least help you to feel better, not worse about yourself. So there's some episodes, just go back into the archives and listen to the affirmation ones. Those will really help you. But I love this whole idea of being gentle with yourself as you're healing. And it's segueing me into asking you the question that I've been wanting to ask about, like, people's intentions when it comes to healing work. Because as you've mentioned a bunch on your Instagram, and I feel the same because I used to be like this, a lot of people come into this work to fix themselves. They say I'm healing, but really what they're doing is trying to fix, trying to change because they don't accept where they are or how they feel or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about like a beneficial vibrational supporting energy around doing healing work versus like the detrimental approach?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely at the beginning, I really thought healing journey was about fixing yourself, right? And that like there was some hole I had in me, and that all of these tools and practices were going to be filling that hole. And, you know, after all these years, I've really come to understand that like I was always whole, and that all those things that I thought were quote unquote
Whole
false,
WH, not whole H.
WH, double, yes, with the W.
Different
Yes,
kind of hole.
there was no hole with an H, as in Courtney Love's band. It's a hole with the W. I don't know if that's a reference that anyone will get, because I'm
oh girl, I'm with
okay.
You on that one.
But you know, but it's really understanding that all of those things that you think are like flaws are actually part of your wholeness, and to really learn how to like embrace them. But I think what unfortunately happens at the beginning is like we're looking to be fixed, and when we're looking at healing from that lack mentality or that deficit mentality, then what ends up happening, and I think an unfortunate thing that happens in the wellness world is a lot of people take advantage of this, is that we are grasping and searching for desperately that solution, that fix for us. And so I found myself in these spaces in which now I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, that was like harmful, or that wasn't helpful, or, you know, that wasn't healing. Like that wasn't growth. That wasn't any of that. And so, I kind of had to learn the hard way. I really had to learn the hard way. And I think actually for me, one of the biggest things was, I'm not Buddhist, but I really love reading anything like Thich Nhat Hanh, Tara Brach, Pema Chodron. Reading those things, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second. And they're telling me that like, I am whole as I am, I'm abundant just as I am. And the more you play around with it, I think what really served me well, and what I really underscore with the people I work with, is curiosity. Just be curious about it. One of the affirmations that for me stuck at the very beginning that I was like, wait a second, this works. It was just like, let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens if we start to think this way, or let's just see what happens if we practice this. Let's just see what happens. And one of the big ones was like really trusting that if it didn't feel right for me, then it wasn't. I don't care how many Instagram followers this person has, how many years they've been doing the thing. If it doesn't feel right for me, then maybe this isn't the modality. Maybe this isn't the teacher. Maybe this isn't the workshop for me right now, or maybe forever. And I think I started to really reclaim, this is something big that I talk about, just really all of us reclaiming our sovereignty and our agency in our healing journey. And that really does start with realizing you do not need to be fixed. Okay. Just as you are whole. What we're learning here is not to become a better version of ourselves. It's to go back to a more true version of ourselves.
Yep.
That's the term I've stopped using too, is self-betterment, because then that implies that we're like working towards something that we aren't. And there's like a before and after, and the before is trash and the after is better, right? Just as we know in the body neutrality movement, that's not serving us. The same thing with our souls and our spirits. And so, yeah, I think this idea, and I think it's something that at first it doesn't make sense, but then as you slowly start to apply the work, you're like, wait a second, actually, I don't be fixed.
Well, and we're working against centuries of conditioning, especially for women. You're working against society telling you the exact opposite, and these things you learn from your parents, even that were unconscious, that you kind of carried with you, voices in your head that are not even your voice. So, again, going back to give yourself that grace and understand that it doesn't make sense in the beginning, but the more you one of the things I teach in my sessions is same thing. We're not really improving upon who you are. I really love self-empowerment, the empowerment to remember that you've always been a badass. Your soul came here, brilliant, pure form of badass. And you just need to remember and reconnect to that part of you. And the answers will come, the puzzle pieces will fit, and then it will feel easier. It just, it takes a minute, and it will feel weird because, again, there's so much telling you that it's not true, but it is.
Yeah. And another thing that I just, thought is also, as you two, I know you've experienced, the more you do this work, you realize that even those things that you think are quote unquote flaws, they like never go away.
Right.
So you just you gain a greater understanding of them. And then when you start to understand why they're there, you understand that compassion part, you're like, oh shoot, this is what my perfectionism is. And this is what it's trying to achieve. And you can have so much love for that. And so you also start realizing like all those flaws really are truly a part of you, and they never go anywhere. They're always with you. They're sometimes soft voices. They're sometimes louder voices, but you learn to have the tools to be with them. Right. And so I think that was also really big for me too, where I'm like, oh, these things actually don't disappear. They're always going to be part of.
Well, there's that saying, it doesn't get easier, you just get better. And I think that speaks to it. There's never going to be a moment where you're not going to have things to look at or observe or maybe understand more. There's never going to be that day where you're going to be completely problem free unless you're dead. So if you're here, you're going to have things. So, it's just about having those tools and that, what did you say? Well, I'm just going to say empowerment, the agency to really kind of give yourself permission to know yourself more. And then by knowing yourself more, there's also that saying, I love sayings. There's this one that's like, those who don't love themselves simply don't know themselves. And I love that so much, because the more you do get to know yourself, you can't help but love that bitch. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm getting excited now. You can't help but love yourself if you really, truly know your true essence. And I just love that so much. So sorry for all the bitches out there. I didn't mean to call you a B word, but I'm getting passionate about it. So
yes, Lindsay's getting passionate. Usually I'm the one saying all the quote unquote bad words.
Dude, I'm shocked that I did it first on this one.
That's great. I'm excited. The tables have turned today. But yeah, Shirin, I think that's a really important point that you made. And maybe it's like probably pooping on some people's like personal development dreams. But the reality is like, you can't get rid of these parts of you that you don't like. You just get better at living with them, understanding them, embracing them, holding space for them, and having so much awareness that you create new choice points where you don't have to act from them from a place of like detriment. So then your perfectionist doesn't have to ruin your life. Your inner anxiety doesn't have to ruin you. Your inner critic doesn't have to stomp on you every chance it gets, like it might still try. It's probably going to be there, but then you know how to be like, oh, I get what she's doing. I know why she's here. And then you have a totally different relationship with it. And you don't have to let it unconsciously rule your actions, choices, behaviors, thought patterns. You get to be the loving, compassionate witness, which I think, curiosity is like the name of the game. Because if you can be genuinely curious, you can really understand, and understanding is what leads you to the self-love, like how we've been saying. Because like Lindsay said so eloquently, when you understand like your truest essence, you can't not love it. Like it's actually so lovable.
So eloquent the way I said it exactly like that. You're right. Well, and we've said this a million times before, and I'm sure we'll say it a million times more, but every part of you is trying to love you. It just may have outdated info. It might have, working from a place of misunderstanding, because sometimes it's loving us in a way that makes zero sense logically. But it is, every part of you is coming from a place of trying to protect you, trying to keep you safe from whatever. And, as we talk about a lot on the show, once you can kind of understand that, it's harder to be mad at it when you can understand it from that point of view. So just another step in the right direction.
Let's give some examples to prove this point, because I think for some people out there, they're probably like, there's a fucking annoying part of me that's ruining all the relationships I try to make, is like trying to help me. Like, what the fuck? So I'll give a personal example and then maybe we can go on a round
I did
table
it first, but
here.
she just like quadrupled all the swear words because I did it first. I love it.
No, I wasn't trying to. Okay. So for me, for example, when I first started doing this work, I tend to be on the anxious spectrum, more or less depending on the day. And I was like so upset with my anxiety. And I was like, oh, this part of me that's always anxious is so annoying. Like I hate her. I want to get rid of her, whatever. And when I started doing this work, I just asked her, like, why are you here? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, what's your agenda for me, for Kelsey? Like, give me the lowdown. Like, I just really need to know what's happening here. And my anxiety was like, yo, I'm the pre-worry. Like, I'm trying to worry on your behalf so you don't have to worry in real life. Like, I save you from potential pitfalls. Like, these are all the things that I do for you. This is how I'm trying to help you. And then when I understood that my anxiety was trying to help me, I was like, oh my gosh, my anxiety is my friend. She might be an annoying friend, but she's my friend. She loves me. She cares about me. And then I was like, oh, I love my anxiety, even though she's so annoying. Like, I think people confuse like and love, and they think that to love a part of yourself, you have to like it, because we say things like, I love pizza, but that doesn't mean you actually like love pizza. That means that you really, really like pizza, but you use the word love instead, right? So it's like, you don't have to like these parts of yourself to love them, to
like
have appreciation for them.
Like,
and to understand them. Like,
sometimes I don't like my siblings, but do I love them? Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Same with my spouse. He's great. Sometimes I don't love him. I mean, like him, love him. I love him all the time. Sometimes I don't like the stuff he does. Sometimes I just don't, anybody you are around a lot or that knows you and you know them so well, there's going to be moments where you're like, I don't like this. But you always, always love them. And I think that's so much more powerful. And a part of you is just like that as well. I have an example. I actually have an example, Kelsey.
Give your example, and then
sometimes Kelsey will be like, what about you, Lindsay? And I'm like, I don't know. Nothing. I have no example. So today I do. I actually, as some of you may know, Kelsey definitely knows, I've been my whole life, really, I don't like the spotlight. I barely did this podcast if Kelsey didn't tell me to do it. She's like, you're coming, you're doing it. We're doing it. I don't like a lot of eyes on me, because then I feel like there's a lot of expectation and I'm afraid, and when I so I didn't go on lives. I didn't do videos. I didn't do reels. I didn't do anything on like where I was by myself and I had to like just make it up and do it. Ugh, gross. But once I kind of dove into it, I realized, okay, maybe I have a little fear of judgment. Why do I have a fear of judgment? Because as much as I love to boast about the fact that I don't really like people, I'm kind of antisocial and I like to be an introvert and I like my own space and that sort of thing. One-on-one people are great, but like crowds of people, my dad's the same way. So maybe, even though I love that part of me, maybe I also secretly also want to be included as well. Nobody wants to be excluded. Nobody wants to feel that way, I don't think. So it was interesting for me to kind of understand that, because I've always, even to myself, I've always been like, yeah, I'm fine with it. It's cool. But maybe I was trying to preemptively protect myself from the possibility. And so I just never put myself in a situation where that would be a possibility. So I just think that once I understood that, I was like, I really don't need to be afraid of that. That's fine. Like I know the value I bring. And so it really does help when you kind of dive in and, reluctantly understand those parts of yourself. Because again, for me, like that was going against everything I was in my head proud of. Like, yeah, I don't need people. I just need me. Like that whole like independent, I think that can be toxic in certain situations as well. But it was interesting for me to kind of to dive in, because I did not expect that. I really didn't. But it's very, very progressive, I guess, for me to be able to move out of that. So I'm still working on it, but it's going pretty well, I think.
Nice. Love it.
You have an example?
Yeah. I mean, I have so many.
Many.
Pick your favorite.
My favorite. No, but like, I think this is the power of being curious and asking questions instead of like judging something or shaming something. But for me, like one of my big ones and one of my big like aha moments that I've had, like kind of, it was a big revelation I had right before the pandemic. And I've really been working through it, is like, I have this thing of like, when things are going, a lot of us have this, like when things are going really well, I'm just like, okay, you better get ready, 'cause like something's going to go bad. And like, the rug's going to be pulled from it. Like just brace yourself for this.
That's a big one for me. So I'm excited to
Yes.
hear what you have to say.
Well, mine is kind of, so I really started kind of tending to and thinking about and working with this. And like one of my very, very first memories. So my family immigrated to Canada from Iran. And my mom threw me and my sister, I was like 4. My mom threw me and my sister like this beautiful birthday party for both of us before we left Iran. But unbeknownst to us, because of course the Middle Eastern family, and at the time, like you didn't talk about feelings or emotions or what was happening, that was actually a goodbye party for us. Like it was, they told us it was a birthday party because it was around our birthday and all the kids came, but all the adults knew we were leaving, and kind of really understanding where the root of this wound comes from, of like this like little girl who was like so happy, and then like the next week was literally kind of taken from everything she knew. It's like that inner child work now, like when that appears, I just know it's her kind of freaking out. And so I just send her so much love and compassion. And it's just, in those moments, those parts of us are being activated, right? And we're just going back in our memory machine. And so for me, that's been a really important one, because things in my life are actually pretty great. And like, if she's on constant alert all the time, like she's tired, I'm tired, we're all tired. So that's been just really like a lot of the work that I've been doing. And again, like, I don't think everyone needs to know the source of where it comes from. That's not important. I was able to locate it, and that helps me. But that doesn't matter. But like having that ability to understand why it could be doing that, and showing it compassion, because when we judge it, which is what we usually do, as we both all know here, it just gets louder. It's like a little kid having a temper tantrum, and it usually gets its way. So that's just been my thing that I've been really working through, and having a lot of like aha moments, but also it's a practice. It's a total practice with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely resonate, with that whole, okay, things are going good, what's about to go wrong? Because, different stories, but I grew up in survival mode. I had to have a plan B, C, D, E, and F, right? So anytime I'm not using that muscle of high alert and like trying to fix and trying to, make sure that all the plates keep spinning, if I have a moment of Zen, I'm like, okay, this isn't normal. This isn't okay. This isn't, and that's just, again, my alert system kind of going off. But I think most people listening can have a moment where they're like, I do have this. And what if I just asked a question? What if I just tried to communicate with it? And again, I love that you said you don't need to know the source. I can't tell you how many people will come to a hypnotherapist and say, can you please help me remember repressed memories? And I immediately will say, hell to the no, because it's something that needs to be repressed. In my opinion, if you don't remember it, your body and your mind have a great uncanny ability to protect you from the stuff that's just too hard to process. It will probably make things worse, open up a can of worms. I'm not one to go fishing inside someone's mind to find this stuff. So I think that it's important that we kind of drive that home. Like, if you can't figure out what it is, that's fine. You can still start where you are and begin to love yourself, and again, show yourself that grace, and just ask questions. If this were trying to protect me, what would it be trying to protect me from? Boom, there you go. And if I can do it, you can do it. I'm just saying.
Hey there. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibe in It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.